What is up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Artful Chiropractor Podcast. My name is Ray Daniels. I am your host, and this week I am excited to bring to you Dr. Sukhi Muker. I think I've mentioned his name now a few different times on the podcast in reflection of my experience at the Mexico mission trip with Vitalistic Masters that was run by Dr. Sukhi, and then a few other docs were there. But it was such a transformative experience. I was so excited to connect with him, and he was so down to be on the podcast. So a few weeks later, we finally made it happen, and now we're finally bringing it to you all. But a little bit more about Dr. Sukhi. He is an award-winning doctor, best-selling author, global speaker, and entrepreneur. He lives in West Vancouver, British Columbia, and has utilized his powerful strategies to overcome the darker shades of life, something that we definitely go into, and you get to hear his story, which is absolutely crazy to see what he overcame. But he has become a 7-time Ironman finisher and completes challenging 100-mile ultramarathons with successful podium finishes. I definitely figured it out quickly that he ran often when I was in Mexico, and every morning we went on a run and he just smoked everybody. But anyways, he is also a partner and the Chief Transformation Officer of Allysian Sciences, an international brain, nootropic, and technology company helping millions worldwide maximize human potential. He's a master mindset coach of professional athletes, CEOs, and high-powered entrepreneurs expanding their 6 to 9-figure enterprises. He has partnered Centers for Optimal Living across North America and is the best-selling author of Beyond Body, Beyond Mind, Overcome Uncertainty, Transcend Challenge and Hardships, and Fulfill Your Dreams. I think one of my most favorite things about Dr. Sukhi is that no matter where you interact with him, whether it be the mission trip down in Mexico or when we were walking along the beach or his talks at night or just this podcast, it's like the same person every single time. There's not this different persona that he puts on. Like, you get Dr. Sukhi in all aspects, and that's something that I'm so grateful for to have shared with him and to have experienced. And throughout this interview, we dive into his habits, his routines, obviously his story, which I think you all will find extremely fascinating. And then, how he has transmitted all of those integrated experiences into chiropractic. And then he's reached out to different entrepreneurs outside of chiropractic because he wanted to create something different within his office, and creating a hope-based practice or possibility-based practice is something that I was very drawn to. He's very precise and impeccable with his words that he uses, and just tries to live congruently and in integrity in all aspects of his life. So I think you all will love this episode. It's a long one, but I think you'll be able to break it down and get so many takeaways, and I look forward to having him back on the podcast eventually, because we could have gone so many different ways, and there's so much that he has to offer. So sit back, enjoy this interview with none other than Dr. Sukhi Muker. Dr. Sukhi Muker, welcome to the Artful Chiropractor, man.
Thank you, Ray. It's great to be here, and thanks for having me on the show. Super excited to do this and co-create this with you.
Likewise. It's so funny to think about how the universe works. You were on our early list of guests who we wanted to have on, and for whatever reason, it didn't work out. But, just a month and a half ago, I ended up almost not going to your mission trip to Mexico, and then it all worked out that I did, and having the most amazing experience thus far at a mission trip.
Oh, wow. Thank you, man. That means the world to me to hear that. Thank you.
Yeah, for sure. And that's definitely my truth. I've been to Haiti, I've been to India. Both of them served me really well, where I was at in school, and just the experiences. Like, I'm glad I had them, but like this trip to Mexico was just the full experience. Just the amazing combination of self-discovery, the work, getting to serve for a few hours, but then a lot of integration time and connection time. It was exactly what I needed, finishing up my 13th quarter, going into my 14th quarter. It was just perfect timing for me.
That's awesome. So pleased to hear that. And, I hope it didn't rock the boat too much for you.
I can't say it didn't do that.
I talked about on the trip where, anytime in life where we have a certain way of thinking about an idea or concept or have a belief system, and then all of a sudden you transcend that, you haven't formulated your new idea and belief around the same concept and new way of thinking at it, you're in that state of confusion. So when people come to me, oh my goodness, I'm confused, I don't understand this, I celebrate that. I'm like, that's the time to celebrate. That's you stepping out of an old awareness and consciousness and expanding into a new way of looking at yourself, which is, you playing bigger in the world. So, we have to learn to embrace that, being comfortable with being uncomfortable. So
right.
I get it. Been there many times. I crave that space. So I'm glad it was that for you.
Yes. Yeah. It's still that for me. I think, the biggest takeaway is just the amount of questions that came from that trip that you facilitated within all of us. It's just like, I'm still diving into some of those, it's just like, how am I going to explain chiropractic? What is it to me? Am I going to be in integrity with it? What is the work, what is the work that I'm doing to be able to show up as my best self, knowing that that's 90% of it, when I serve people. It's just like so many questions going through my head, and it's, I'm still diving through.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's great. And those questions, they serve us so well because, it's the quality of those questions. It's cliche. Most of us heard this, but the quality of questions really derive the quality of our answers and the trajectory of our life and where we're moving towards. So the more profound, deeper, powerful, authentic questions that we can ask of ourselves, the greater impact we can have, because it's all of a sudden we start to, demand greatness of ourselves, and we question every part of ourselves. And, a lot about my past and where I've come from.
Yeah.
And that's really where it stems from for me is, certain things I was doing in my life and who I was becoming, I started to question. And I would say that is really the fundamental difference between where I am today versus the people I grew up with and where they are today, most of which, aren't even alive today. So,
right.
Taking that into life, forget about chiropractic for a moment, just in life in general, like for me, asking those questions, how can I be, a better husband to my wife, Kate? How can I be a better father to my 5 and 2-year-old daughters? How can I be a better friend? How can I be a better son? And then, obviously, as we start to cultivate and develop a better version of ourselves, that's going to pour into every aspect of our life, which, of course, is going to include our vocation, which is chiropractic, and how we serve in that area. So it's really, like you said, for me, it's this concept of vitalism, this concept of wholeness. It's a way of being. It's a way of living life. It's a way of stepping into your world. It's, to me, so much bigger than chiropractic. Chiropractic falls into vitalism.
Right.
I've had people who I've met at different opportunities. I've spoken a lot over the past decade and a half, and with all due respect, 95% of my speaking has not been in chiropractic. It's been outside of chiropractic. And I essentially am speaking wholeness and vitalism, which, one can say is personal development, self-discovery, and exploration. But, that plays a huge role in chiropractic. So I haven't spent a lot of time on chiropractic stages. It's actually funny. It's really in the past year, I've had more opportunities, and I actually just booked to speak another opportunity to speak over in England this coming fall. At a chiropractic conference there. And, I'm happy to do it, and I'm excited about it because I owe so much to this profession, as it's done so much for me. However, we have to be that in which we desire and really lead by example. Like, as leaders, call us what you want, your chiropractor, your health coach, the beacon of light in your community. We set the tone. And I believe that we as chiropractors, we've got to inspire people with our commitment and dedication to our journey, with our work ethic, with our tenacity, because I would say nobody's going to work harder than the person leading them. Like the leader has to set the tone. It's like being the captain of a sports team. It's like the captain is captain of the ship, and the person they're following is a coach. And but whether it's playing hockey, basketball, soccer, basketball, whatever it is like if you want to have a high performing life, a high performing practice, a high performing family, you've got to lead by example, and you've got to be willing to do the work and show them. For me, I don't tell my kids, I show my kids. I show my kids what's possible. I just showed you my office and my workspace. And I always say, like, if you ever want to know what people value, it's pretty simple. You can walk into their home and just look around and see whatever you see. That's what they value. If you see magazines about and books on interior design, they probably value interior design. So when I gave you, a view of my office here, what was your takeaway, Ray?
My takeaway was first that I was really inspired of what's possible for a badass office. I'm sitting here posted up in my 300 square foot room right now with my podcast, but just seeing your workout stuff, your bikes in there, you have a standing desk station, you have a mat so you can do groundwork, you have your treadmill in there. It's like you're being able to integrate work and then movement and your health, and having that as your number one priority is your vitalism. It's like your health, and from there everything else can come from that. Right.
Yeah, and with people who have been in the profession a long time, who I've become friends with, some 30, 40 years in the profession, and I take this humbly as a massive compliment. Is they'll say to me, Sukhi, you're one of the most vitalistic human beings I've ever met in my entire life. And to have people who have been practicing for 35, 40 years that are very principled, they get the big idea, they speak on the stages, they share the vision, say that. It's like, wow, thank you for saying that. And why can't we all just be like this? Like, why can't we all just embrace these ideas from moment to moment to moment in every single aspect of our life? It's like, I say that the constant drip of water can erode an entire mountain. If we constantly dripped vitalism and wholeness into every aspect of our life, from our mind, our body, and our spirit, who would we become as a result of being that every moment? And some days you're going to be on, and some days you're going to be off. But the reality is having the dedication, the willingness to roll up your sleeves and actually do it is what makes a difference days, weeks, months, and years from now.
And I think that's just a huge takeaway, is like people see that, the people that you serve. I think that's like that missing piece, that maybe the people, they don't know why, but it's like they look at you and they see that you're working in all these areas, and all these aspects of your life are in integrity with your values. It's just like, yeah, people come in and maybe they want to get out of pain, but really, deep down, they want this extraordinary life. And if you're living it, it's just like, even consciously or unconsciously, they're picking up on your integrity, I think, in all those areas.
I feel that, I do feel like I'm the quarterback for a lot of different people in my practice in terms of their life's journey, which includes their health and well-being, their family's health and well-being. But literally, I've worked with people with some really serious stuff, like cancers, terminal illnesses, autoimmune diseases. And then as your reputation precedes you, you start to have people, come in from other cities, other countries, flying in, getting a hotel so they can come work with you. You start to see that. I think they're nuts. I'm like, it's just, I'm like, seriously, you want to turn your life upside down just so you can see me and find a way to make it happen? It's like I realized I was tapping into something far greater than getting people out of aches and out of pains and out of discomfort. And we can dive more into that. And that, I'll tell you right now, holy smokes, talk about a way to absolutely love what you do. Because to me, chiropractic at a kindergarten level is getting people out of aches and pains. Like, yeah, sure, we can do that. Yeah, sure, that's good for people. Yeah, sure, that might be the initial motivation of why somebody calls and walks into your office and practice. But I promise you, they are not there to get out of aches and pains and discomfort, even when they say that, because they have not been given a possibility bigger than themselves. And, that's one of the things that I do is I hold people to a really, really high standard, and I get more out of people than they thought they were capable out of getting out of themselves. And that's really leading people, and that's really inspiring people. Yeah. And having, being in practice now for 16 years, and I talked about a lot of things that I'm into, and I've transitioned. I used to be in practice full time, and practice very part time. I mentor a lot of docs now, younger docs, and who are really in true mentorship, and mentorship where I'll be able to guide and lead them. And creating true mentorship to me is like, one day I have the intention that everyone who I'm guiding and mentoring will transcend me, because that's really what real mentorship is. If we take a step back from life and the journey of evolution, and with all due respect to the great teachers and mentors I've had in life, most of which are not in chiropractic, some of which who have been in chiropractic, the second that I started bumping up against them, all of a sudden these egos started coming at me, and all of a sudden it was like I started to get pushed down. It's like, well, the true purpose of mentorship is a mentee transcends a mentor and keeps the torch going. I want that for my daughters. I want that for their generation. I don't want it to stop with me. Yet giving people the tools and strategies and foundations to develop, to become their own leader, to become leaders in our profession, to lead people in their communities and this profession. It's naive for me to think, hey, I've got it all figured out, because I don't. I have a lot of questions, and I don't have it figured out, and I never will have it figured out.
That also comes with that abundance mindset too, though. It's that abundance versus that competitive mindset. It's just like, take my work, build on it, be better. Like, I love that. Like, if you really want to evolve the consciousness of humanity, it's just like, you're going to have a certain foundation, and then hopefully, like you said, you can mentor someone who can take everything that you have and then build on it and create off of that, and then grow, and evolve. And then that'll push you at the same time, because you're going to want to continue to evolve, but like, it's going to be a very collaborative excitement, collaboration versus like, I'm going to keep what I have in for me,
Right. And the big piece is that, which, I talk about, I've been on this journey of self-discovery and exploration for 26 years, and it's really infusing that humility and compassion into the equation. And when you combine humility and compassion, it's like, wow, you're really able to, check this beautiful ego that we all have, which we all manage on a daily basis if we choose to, but, come from that place of pure potential within ourselves, which is the big idea in chiropractic. It's like, the big idea is that, we have this innate potential that can literally do anything and everything that's so much greater than my finite intelligence, like this amazing universal intelligence within us. And the fascinating thing, Ray, is that we're in a place now, okay, in 2018, that's really fascinating. And we talked about this on the trip, where the population of humanity is increasing. We know that. The utilization rate of chiropractic is not increasing, potentially decreasing in some areas. If you just do the math on population, even if the utilization rates were the same, there's actually a decrease in utilization in chiropractic. Another stat that I heard was that 2 out of every 3 graduating chiropractic students will not be in practice within 5 years of graduation. Like, how does that make you feel?
Yeah, that's rough.
That's rough.
I've heard
right?
similar stats to that. It's just like, that's crazy.
And I take a step back from that, Ray, and I say, how does the greatest profession on the planet, okay, on the planet, have those statistics? Because for me, over 65% of the people who have walked into my office have never seen a chiropractor before. Okay, so it's somewhere between 65 and 70% have never seen a chiropractor before. And it's sort of like, what role? Because like, I'm done with this whole thing of trading peeps. Like you see one chiropractor, another chiropractor. Okay, they get chiropractic helps them. Now they're just, trying their different coffee shops, if you will.
Yep.
But like, how about all those people that have never experienced this true gift and beauty of what chiropractic is in its purest, rawest form, the most beautiful form that it is, and giving that and dispensing that to people? If we did that as a profession, there's no way that those utilization rates couldn't increase. There's no way that 90 to 100% of graduating students would be thriving, not just surviving in practice. And the other thing that really gets me, this is what really gets me, is that these concepts in wholeness and vitalism, they're not unique within chiropractic. In fact, there's a lot of other professions talking the same game. However, chiropractors and chiropractic has been saying it the longest. Been saying it like D.D. Palmer said, the purpose of chiropractic was to unite man the physical with man the spiritual. And I actually know there's data to support that. The stuff coming out of Heart Math Institute, the stuff that Greg Braden talks about, Joe Dispenza talks about, there's a lot of data to be like, hey, these things are actually occurring. And you know what's happening, Ray? There's other professions, acupuncture, naturopathy, shiatsu. There's all these other holistic energy healing, all this other stuff out there that is now taking what chiropractors have been saying for decades, and their utilization rates are going through the roof. So what's wrong with us? And I say us because, I'm in the camp too. Like, what is wrong with us as chiropractors? Like, what are we doing? And this is a powerful question because I've been asking it. And I feel like I do have some insights there, and I do have some shares. I don't have all the answers, but as a profession, I believe we have a lot to clean up. And I believe that we have a lot of integrity that we can uphold at a much higher standard than we have been up until this point. Because when I look at some of those other professions, those are some of the things that I see. And don't get me wrong, those professions are not perfect by any means. But purely if we look at utilization rates, it's like, me being, a former ultra endurance athlete, I love data, and the data doesn't lie, right? So when we look at the data and we see certain things like, interesting, what's happening there and what's happening here?
Right. And I don't think, like, when you were talking about like just the purest, rawest form of chiropractic, I think that is not being told very, very much without the profession. So it's like, you're talking about the, percentage of chiropractors. I'm like, that even is a smaller percentage, of chiropractors that are even going there and being raw with it. Because that kind of leads me into kind of going back just a little bit is, you give that to your people, that potential of chiropractic and, and what's possible for them. And then you hear, different ideas of meeting people where they're at. And I definitely get that. And I think there's just art form of being able to meet them where they're at with their pain, but then talk about what it's really about, like possibility. And it's just like, then you go back and forth with like, all right, what are their goals? What do they want? It's just like, are you letting your ego come in and be like, this is what you need? So it's just like back and forth. And that's something I've been continuing to think about since the Mexico trip. It's just like wrestling with that art form. Yeah. Because it goes back to what you said, like living an extraordinary life as a chiropractor is being able to serve the people that you want to serve and talk about the things that you want to talk about. And you don't just want to be treating people's pain for 20, 30, 40 years,
Yeah, and with all due respect, there's a lot of professions out there that treat pain. In fact, the practice of medicine is the diagnosis and treatment of symptom, sickness, and disease. That is not what chiropractic is. And if you as a chiropractor would like to do that, all the power to you.
Right.
But from where I stand, you are not practicing chiropractic even close to its purest form, because chiropractic is so much more than that. It's so much greater than that. Chiropractic is allowing people to fully express and maximize their potential as a human being. Like when you actually embody that, allow them physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually to show up as the greatest version of themselves day in, day out in every aspect of their life. And you have a product and service from the moment people walk into your practice, from the moment they leave, that is 100% aligned and in integrity with that vision and that mission. Because this is what I've done. I deconstructed everything. And, one of my biggest challenges with chiropractic was that I'd been studying quantum physics for almost a decade. Now, I wasn't a PhD, but I've been reading ideas and books about physics and quantum physics well before I was a graduating chiropractor. So all of a sudden, I started seeing how your traditional principled subluxation-based chiropractor was practicing and what they were doing. Because what I did was I'm Canadian, and I went to school, get this, at the most mechanical chiropractic college on the planet. Okay, Canadian Memorial Chiropractic College, CMCC, in Toronto, Ontario. It is the most mechanistic, in my opinion, at the time, chiropractic college on the planet. It's actually kind of amazing that it's graduated some really crazy, amazing principal docs, which is really profound. And I'll share with you, I studied hard. I learned that model. I graduated on the dean's list. I graduated with honors, and I graduated with clinical honors. That means I'm a badass when it comes to orthopedic tests, this and that. And, and I share that, not to impress you, but to impress upon you. I learned the pain model as good as you can learn it. In fact, I learned it better than most of the chiropractors who graduate from schools like that and practice that way. So I could have practiced that way very easily. But, because I'd been researching and learning about quantum physics and particles and frequencies and how our subatomic matrix transmutes into our cellular matrix, and that is really our consciousness, and the nervous system being like a computer system that is really responsible for our perception of reality. And we are, in fact, the conscious creators of our reality, projecting our lens of our unhealed patterns of yesteryear that now run like a disc that has a scratch and plays the same verse over and over. And that's what we see. I know that was a mouthful, but it's like all of a sudden I started questioning everything, in terms of even some of the loving, kind, great chiropractors in our profession that are helping chiropractors to be successful in practice said, yeah, you really got to do X, Y, and Z if you want to be quote unquote successful in practice. And I felt that by doing those things, I wasn't in integrity with who I was at a deep soul level based on my journey and what I understood.
At what point did you have that shift, Sukhi? You were in school, did you graduate or were you studying kind of that quantum mechanics and quantum physics through school? Or was it kind of afterwards and you're like, oh man, how am I going to practice?
No. I actually was studying it before I went to chiropractic college, and then deeply while I was in school, and really started to connect the dots between quantum physics and chiropractic while I was in school. And, I didn't realize I was going to such a mechanistic school. And as a result of that, I wasn't really happy with the education, and I kind of thought chiropractic was a bunch of BS and crap because of what my school was teaching me. And then I learned while I was in school, I was introduced to a whole new world of principled chiropractors, which I thought what my school was teaching me was what chiropractic was, which I think a lot of students have.
Right.
So then, imagine all these ideas you've read in physics and particle physics and consciousness and development and trying to understand this elusive thing called the human spirit, studying all that and then going to a mechanical school, and then all that stuff and all that literature literally fuels my soul.
Right.
Like, I can't read enough of that stuff. Like, that gets me up in the morning. Like, for me, anything that talks about human potential, like, I'm a human potential guy, maximize human potential, and all those ideas and concepts came through physics. So then I'm going to this school and having this education. I'm like, this is going to be my career, and all of a sudden takes the things that light me up at a deep core soul level and turns the volume down to zero. It's like, I don't want to spend my career, my life doing this.
Right. And then you wonder, you look at all the different chiropractic schools that's kind of the model that they're in. So going back to our question of like, it kind of makes sense of why our profession is where it's at. If most of the schools are like that, I think, there's a few that you can get dabbled into different, ways of thinking about chiropractic, which is crazy. Like, different ways of thinking about how chiropractic was founded on. It's just like not even getting that, and like not saying that that's what you have to do, but it's like being exposed to what chiropractic was founded on and the possibility of vitalism. It's just like these students aren't even getting that, so they're in practice and they have like no idea. And what we talked about back in the pre-chat, it's like people are doing the best that they can. So I don't want to discredit
what they have. Totally.
Exactly, but it's crazy.
And I think, one of the things I'll say, Ray, is that I think that we have this idea that this 3 to 4 years of education that we call chiropractic college is supposed to give us everything we need to be successful in life and chiropractic professionally. Mm-hmm. And all I'll say is chiropractic colleges are doing their best given what they have, just like we as chiropractors are doing our best. There's rules, there's regulations. And so I invite chiropractic students and I invite new docs to look at their chiropractic education as being the foundation upon which they must build. Chiropractic college is not bad. It doesn't suck. It's just not complete. And with all due respect, how can you expect 3 to 4 years to set everything you need to know for the rest of your life professionally? It's impossible to think that.
It's just the tip of the iceberg.
It's just the tip of the iceberg. So for me, when I reformulated that thought while I was in chiropractic college and said, look, my school is going to give me my foundation. And people call it different things. My school gives me my degree, but I learned chiropractic elsewhere. That's really what I think it is. We have enough of a foundation. And, to be grateful for your education. Hey, I'm super grateful for a mechanical education in chiropractic, because guess what? When people come in with MRIs, CAT scans, and these crazy diagnoses, somehow my memory and brain remembers what I learned at chiropractic college. Be like, okay, I know what that is. And if I want to learn a little more, I can jump on Google just to refresh my mind. And to be able to serve that person, to have compassion and empathy for where they presently are, meet them where they are, connect with their values, communicate to their value systems, and expand them 1%. Expand them 1 degree. That's where I want to move everybody. Because, if somebody's been given a terminal illness and you're talking human potential, you're not serving them. They're not ready to hear that, because they just want to live 6 months. Like, forget about maximizing human potential, right?
Right.
But if they just want to live 6 months, how about sharing a story about somebody who's had a similar terminal diagnosis that's lived 3 years? They're like, really? Oh, well, I was just hoping to get 6 months. I'm like, yeah, well, they had this and they actually lived for 3 years. I've now connected with them at a whole new level, and we can now create a journey and path together to lead them down. And I've inspired them from their heart, from their soul, and I've motivated them from their mind, because their mind thinks it's possible. In a way, I believe practice, just like ourselves, it's about getting people out of their own way so their authentic, purposeful, powerful self can fully emerge.
I definitely want to come back to that, because that connection piece is huge. And some of the exercises that you did with us in Mexico, I thought was really powerful and influential, of just being able to like see almost, I don't know how you describe it, but it's just like when someone walks in your door, you're almost taking on their physiology and some of the experiences and just people that you have in your practice, of how quickly you can connect with them and create a space where you can say something and almost bring them to tears because you've like created that rapport. And I think that takes a ton of training, but we're going to come back to that, I think, a little bit later.
Okay,
but
cool.
I want to loop back around a little bit on, not gurus, but just like you said, loving coaches within the profession that pretty much told you you're not going to be able to be successful with that model. And that was a very profound takeaway that I had, as well, learning from you and what you did with that information. So maybe talk through that process a little bit of the current model that was going on in chiropractic and then what you wanted to create.
Yeah. So, when you start peeling back the layers, fear is a phenomenal way of really motivating people to do something. And so for me, I started peeling back the layers and really try to understand public relations, understand marketing, and understand people and the way things were done. And, I just had felt that if any aspect of my communication, any aspect of my delivery of vitalism included fear, I was no longer being vitalistic. And so my thing was, I literally believed at my core that I could move people, I could inspire people, and I could motivate people to link arms with me, to get on a journey with me based on possibilities. Because, same thing, like, here's a simple example, okay? If a grandmother walks into your office and she's in pain, the chiropractor say, well, she wants to get out of pain. I'm like, you don't want to get out of pain. And I'll say that to people, you don't want to get out of pain. I go, what would you do if the pain didn't exist? And the fascinating thing is, most people, they can't even answer that. Remember I said earlier, I actually get more out of people than they thought was previously available to them. And I'll start diving in. I'll be like, if you weren't in pain, what would you do right now? I go, because you know what? The universe isn't going to give it to you if you don't even know what you want. That's like going to a coffee shop and, not being sure if you want an Americano, a latte, and cappuccino, and standing at the front counter for an hour trying to decide. That's what the universe is doing. And guess what? It's not going to give you any of them until you finally decide, I'm actually going to have an Americano and make it long. And then the universe will give it to you. So it's like, this is the place that I put people through. So, in that example, a common one is, I'll ask questions. I'll be like, do you have children? Do you have grandchildren? And I'll look for the thing that lights them. Oh, and right when I say grandchildren, you'll see that little twinkle in their eye. I'm like, there it is. I'm like, do you play with your grandchildren? Can you hold your grandchildren? Can you climb underneath the slide with your grandchildren? What would that be like if you could? Because right now you can't. And then we go on that journey. And then I help them understand their journey and their process with me is for them to be able to do the things that they love to do. And then guess what? Once they're able to do that, then let's look at another area of their life that they're integrating, they're processing. Because, for me, let's talk about what my worldview is and my vision of what I believe that we do. Mm-hmm. First and foremost, I resonate very strongly with D.D. Palmer and the teachings of D.D. Palmer. He was an energy healer. As a result of physics, I very much gravitated more towards the tonal model of chiropractic. As you know, I am a tonal practitioner. Let's not get into this whole thing, this whole technique work, because every technique works. Okay. So let's jump off that. And because every technique works, I believe that each and every one of us is different. We look different. We walk differently. We speak differently. We, tend to our universe differently. So just do the thing that really is your song to the universe. What's your one verse to the universe? And play that song. So whatever that is, like I was teacher of a technique club in school. It was the Thompson Club. I learned diversify. I learned upper cervical, many different tonal techniques, and they're all a part of my toolbox. I've even explored outside of chiropractic to really understand the foundations of atoms and particles. So to me, and my worldview of this whole thing is really interesting, because I had no desire to take people out of one box and put them into another box. So in 16 years of practice, Ray, I have never used the word subluxation in my practice. You know, to me, a subluxation is less sub, lux, light, Asian expression, less light expression. So if I say a word, how about I just define what that is? And so, you know, if we backtrack and think about my life and being raised on the other side of the tracks, because, you know, I'm a high school dropout from nowhere. I was a hood rat. I hit rock bottom when I was 18. But my reality was based on my environment. It's like our nervous system is our perception system. And as we all know, what we see, hear, smell, taste, touch, and that intuitive gut feeling within ourselves is constantly downloading all these experiences, which are nothing more than a bunch of subatomic waves being collapsed into particles that we're now taking on. When we integrate those experiences, we're simply adding the frequency and tone of those experiences, that music, if you will, to our present frequency, increasing the organization, complexity, the music, aka consciousness and bandwidth. So every time we have an experience that we upgrade, it's essentially like trading in your old computer, going to the local computer store, Mac store down the street, and getting the latest and greatest. You're continually upgrading. So my whole thing is to the key to the whole thing, and I talk about this in my book. The last strategy in my book and one of the last chapters is integration. I believe the purpose of chiropractic is to help people integrate. And when we can't integrate this beautiful, amazing intelligence, you know, I said, if this intelligence is so amazing, why on earth would it even create subluxations? It's so great. So then why is it doing this thing, quote unquote, wrong? Because I've heard chiropractors say my purpose and intention and reason for being is to eradicate subluxations from the world. And I have a 180-degree opinion of that, because I believe a subluxation is nothing more than stored energy. It is an unintegrated experience that is creating a perceptual lens of your reality. And our goal as a chiropractor is to facilitate the full integration of that gift, because that gift, that experience is the next step in your evolution, physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, to expand your awareness, to expand your consciousness, to allow you to connect to the deeper parts of yourself so you fully express who you are. Now, obviously, I'm not giving this to people on their first visit, right?
Right.
I'm giving it to you. It's a chiropractic podcast, and I'm jumping right to the big idea and my version of it. So understand, you know, when we take a step back, like, you know, I've been through a lot of hard things during the first 18 years of my life, right to the point where I almost hit rock bottom and tried to take my own life, did hit rock bottom, you know, multiple overdoses. I've retraced my entire life through my healing journey. And 26 years ago, you know, I shared with you one of the most difficult decisions I ever made for myself. Probably the most difficult decision was to leave that life, to say, you know, to the people who I wouldn't be alive if it wasn't for these people, you know, being involved with hoods and gangs and all that sort of stuff, crime, violence, drugs, having my own addictions, and saying your life is either going to end you up in jail forever or 6 feet under the ground. And that's why I said, you know, most of my closest friends are, you know, not even alive today because they were murdered because they chose a certain lifestyle. Mm-hmm. And at 18 years old, I didn't know I was even remotely capable of living the life that I'm living today, 26 years later. But what I did know with certainty, that life I was living up until that point was not my path and not my journey. And when I took responsibility, because we have a choice. We can be the victim or we can be the hero of our journey. And up until 18, I was the victim. It was my parents. You know, I was abandoned. I had no role models. It was my environment. It's a dog eat dog world. I had to do this thing. I had to put food on the table. I had to find a way to put a roof over my head. It was all these victim mentality, things that I was saying to myself, up until a point where it was like, I looked in the mirror. My favorite song, Michael Jackson, Man in the Mirror, taking responsibility. No, I made the choices. I ended up where I ended up because I made those choices. Let's take responsibility for our lives. And I still take responsibility. And knowing and being in that world, literally doing drugs almost every day from age 12 to 18. And now 26 years later, not having any drugs, nothing within my body. And, I've had crashes, I've had bike crashes, training, broken multiple bones, and people wanted to throw drugs and things inside of me, yet choosing a holistic, vitalistic path, being the role model for that, understanding that I had a lot of core healing to do. So first and foremost, and the big thing, I've been on this journey since I was 18, well before I stepped into practice, over a decade later.
Just to add to that, Sukhi, I mean, you talk about that one decision at 18, to leave that life. But I think, before that, make decision to not leave this life, not to leave the world. Like you had a very... Not to
leave the world, yeah.
So that decision and then another decision. So it's like...
Yeah. And I'll share that decision. I'll say, when you hit your lows of lows, because, at 18, I got to a point where the idea of living life and staying in this world was less attractive than leaving this world. And that was my lows of lows. And that was me with, I shared it to you, it's in my book, my failed suicide attempt. And then the switch flicking and all of a sudden being like, no, a part of me wants to stay a little more than I want to go. And that was it. And it was just that switch. And then choosing a different path with not knowing what that looked like. So coming back to your original question, I was told that people need to be motivated through fear,
Right.
They need to see what's wrong with them. And if they don't get under this care, then they're going to have X, Y, or Z happen to them, which are all negative and bad things. So for me, it violated a fundamental premise, like at a deep core level of my value system and what I stand for in this world and all about possibilities. And I said, well, that might be true, which we can even get into because, I've went down that rabbit hole as well. But anyway, that is because that may or may not even be true. But, let's just pretend for a second it is true. I still chose not to go there because going down the rabbit hole, I wasn't unequivocally, in the belief system that it was. And, I mentioned a name on the trip, and this gentleman's name is Edward Bernays. He wrote a book in the 1920s.
I have his book right here that I haven't read it yet.
Propaganda, okay? So here's the deal. Here's a gentleman that wanted to understand how politics and war could be created through, Sigmund Freud was his uncle, okay? So he wanted to understand psychology, socialism, and how you manipulate people to do what you want them to do. He is the father of public relations and marketing. He is the guy who essentially created it. The word propaganda didn't bode well from a business standpoint. So he changed it to public relations and marketing. Every single aspect of public relations and marketing, even till today, Ray, the fundamental aspects of it are based on Edward Bernays' work. And I learned this, and I'm like, well, I'm for sure not doing this.
Right.
Holocaust, Nazi Germany, all based on these ideas and concepts of propaganda. Okay? So when you take a step back from the whole thing, the whole model and why people do things, and this guy, he died in 95, and on his deathbed, he actually, in my opinion, he experienced hell on earth. Because on his deathbed, he actually said, my life was atrocious. I made all the wrong decisions. I made this world a worse place. This guy is responsible for politics, different wars, tobacco industry, sugar industry, pretty much like like the battle between fats and sugars about 50 years ago, he won that battle through his propaganda model based on eco-agriculture. And now we're coming full circle with ketosis and all this beautiful stuff and rethinking the whole carb sugar thing. So in a lot of ways, I started to connect the dots. And again, we're all doing the best given what we know, seeing, wow, even my beautiful profession has been down this path and been influenced, even though it probably doesn't even realize it was influenced by this model. So I go, there's got to be a better way. There's got to be a better way of doing this. And I'll tell you right now, I fell on my face a lot. I made a lot of mistakes because the challenge was I didn't meet anybody in our profession that was really blowing it up and doing well based on possibilities. Because, 16 years ago, 15, 14, 13 years ago, I couldn't find anyone doing that. And so I literally had to figure it out for myself. Now, the beautiful thing was I did have coaches, I did have mentors, but those coaches and mentors were super conscious, super aware, but they weren't chiropractors and they didn't understand chiropractic. And that was my gift. They only knew chiropractic from my possibility-based perspective and how we could move people from that. And my whole model is based on connecting to people's values, understanding who they are, allowing them to see the value in what we do. When people come in, they have 3 questions. 1, can you help? Am I in the right freaking place? Like, can you actually help me? Okay, that's the first question. That needs to be answered. Number 2, how long is this damn thing going to take? Okay, let's answer that. And number 3, how much is it going to cost? Okay, those are the 3 questions that everybody comes in with. Can you help? How long is it going to take? How much is it going to cost? So we have to understand everyone comes from a mechanistic perspective. So they're not interested in a journey day one. And, what did I share with you in terms of, my numbers, my PVA numbers are in the couple to few hundred level. Right. Like I surpassed the 300 level in terms of PVA. So if you walk into my office for an initial visit, the probability you're going to hang out for 250 to 350 adjustments is higher than 90%.
Right. And it's all based off possibility.
This is all based on possibility. And it's all based on from the moment somebody walks in to the moment they leave, based on vitalism. And as you know me, Ray, so you get who I am. I don't want people listening to this, think about, yeah, that's great for you and how great you are. It's not about this. I am sharing this because I'm going back to the beginning. I love chiropractic. I love chiropractors. And all I'm saying is what we're doing up until this point isn't working as a profession. And I just want to plant the seed that not only was I able to do it, I've been able to mentor tons of docs and they've been able to do it and reproduce it to get extraordinary results as well. Because some of the things people say, well, I'm just not like you. I haven't had your journey and there's something special. No, it's not me. It's really taking a step back and understanding people. Like, I don't believe in scripts. Right. Like imagine if I was a dating coach, okay? And you just, Ray, you just weren't that magnet when it came to women, okay? But you had a first date and I'm your dating coach, okay? And I'm like, I get you to memorize a script on that first date. I'll tell you right now, that person sitting across the dining table from you, she's just going to feel a bit icky. Mm-hmm. And as a result of feeling icky, she's just not going to feel you. Versus if I empowered you, gave you talking points, allowed you to be on a journey of connecting with who you are so you could be authentic, you could wear your heart on your sleeves, you could be vulnerable, you could connect with her, I'm pretty sure you're going to have a very different experience. Mm-hmm. And so,
I agree.
Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So like, here's the deal, guys. Like, my wife comes from a branding marketing expert. She she worked for one of the biggest cereal manufacturers. And so, with my wife being in my life now for 12 years, I learned from her, we have negative brand equity. Like, that means if I walk up to someone, Ray, and I say, hi, my name's Sukhi, I'm a chiropractor, they think less of me than if I said, hi, I'm Sukhi. Pleased to meet you. That's a problem.
Bad. Yeah, that's really
That's
bad.
bad. That's a problem, right? That's a problem. So, like I've coached and mentored many people. And like, I'll give you an example. Like one woman that I coached who happened to be a divorce lawyer. And I said, lawyers are kind of in the same boat. Like lawyers potentially have negative brand equity as well. I say, we worked together. We wanted to develop her as a human being, develop her business, et cetera, et cetera. I said, well, when you walk up to people, what do you say? She's like, oh, hi, nice to meet you. I'm a divorce lawyer. I'm like, no, you're not saying that anymore. Let's talk about what on earth you do. So then we started peeling back the layers. And I said, like, if you could script your life and your profession and your professionalism, who do you want to work with? What gets you up in the morning? And so, I happen to, here's my journey. I was raised in the poorest, what we call postal code, what you guys call zip code in my entire country. Now I live, practice, play in the most affluent, wealthy postal code, zip code in my country. So, this is where we are, and where we are here, there's women that dedicate their lives to raising their children. Husbands are the breadwinners, and many of them get separated and divorced. She loves working with those women to make sure they don't get screwed because they didn't work for, 2 decades. And on the other side of that divorce, she wants to make sure they're taken care of. And I'm like, so, we went through a process and we came to a point where she found her voice, and together we came up with, I help women go through transitions, setting themselves up for financial security and prosperity. That's what she does for a living now. Now, what sounds better? Hi, I'm Jane. I'm a divorce lawyer. Or hi, I'm Jane. I help women, et cetera, et cetera.
Exactly.
Do you see what I mean? So like,
Totally.
I just took what she actually does and actually explains it. Because here's the deal. You're going to get 1 or 2 responses from that, right? And the first response is, oh, that's great. And they're going to walk away. Because you know what? They didn't give a shit anyway. So you don't have to get into it.
Right.
But if they really care, they're going to take a step back and say, oh, because really she hasn't said anything. Like, how on earth do you help women going through transition? What the hell is a transition? Are you a financial planner? What do you mean financial security? Then as you gauge deeper in a dialogue, because that person just requested a dialogue from you and you're now responding versus verbal diarrhea into people's mouth, which is what most chiropractors do. You're actually responding to their question. You're able to share more, and eventually it will come out that she's a divorce lawyer. It's the same thing in chiropractic. So if I walk up to someone and say, hi, I'm Dr. Sukhi, I'm a chiropractor, what I'm doing, Ray, is I'm leaving every single person that I connect with the ideas, opinions, experiences of every chiropractor of yesterday to her form an opinion of who I am today. I'm a control freak because, in life, control is elusive. The only thing that's certain is everything's uncertain. So I like to try to navigate as much as I can because life's a series of probabilities and I can't control everything. So I want her opinion of me based on my profession to be what I dispense to her. And I want to break down the walls of any opinions that she has of chiropractic from yesteryear. Oh, I had a friend. She saw a chiropractor. He broke her neck, blah, blah, blah. I'd never see a chiropractor. You know what I mean?
Totally.
And I don't know. Or maybe she loves chiropractors, right? Maybe she does. And we obviously have that because here's the deal with chiropractic. If you see a dentist and you have a bad experience, you find another dentist.
Exactly.
You see a chiropractor, you have a bad experience, guess what? You're never seeing a chiropractor again. We're in such a precarious situation because people either love us, which there's a lot of, but not enough of, or hate us. There tends to be no middle ground with chiropractors, especially principled chiropractors. Because principled chiropractors, oh yeah, you see them once, you got to see them forever. Well, let's break that down. What are half dudes? What do you want?
Right.
Like, how on earth, do you inspire people to be on a journey and still get adjusted regularly after 15, 16 years of care? Because you're leading them on a journey and you're continuing. It's like when I do my reassessments with people who've been under care for over a decade, we're just talking about, what they're experiencing. and what's going on in their life. And they're now empowered to understand that in life we have experiences, and their nervous system integrates it, and the adjusting process facilitates the integration process, which really, integration, as I said earlier, is taking those particles, adding to our matrix, increasing our frequency and complexity, one, at a cellular level, two, at a conscious level, so expanding our bandwidth, so we're becoming more aware, more conscious, i.e., this is my explanation for evolution.
And that was something that you talked about too in Mexico. It's like you'll have people who come in and out of care, but then, like you gave an example of a woman who was in your practice. She came back, she signed up for a year of care after not being with you for, I don't know, 6 months or something. She got the big idea of like...
They get the big idea. And this is, I have a saying, I love people in and I love people out. It's naive to think that people want to stay there forever. Some of them will, but, they're going to do. Like, I live in a very progressive city. People have a naturopath, a massage therapist, an acupuncturist, a nutritionist, a personal trainer, half of which are saying a very similar message that I'm saying, and they have their chiropractor. So just because they stop getting adjusted doesn't mean they've fallen off the wagon. It just means they might be in a phase where they feel something is serving them more. I'm working with them, they're integrating some deep stuff, and all of a sudden, a new trauma, some abuse happened at a very young age, and they feel like they need some serious psychotherapy or counseling, and I'll encourage that. And of course, I'll invite them to add it a part of the matrix, but due to resources, they may not be able to. So I'll be like, let's check in 3 months, 6 months. I'll reach out to you to this. It's loving people in, loving people out. We know what we're great as chiropractors. We're phenomenal at shaming people. We're phenomenal at shaming people. Like, you don't want this anymore? Oh, yeah. It's also, and why does that happen? Because we haven't done the inner work.
Yep.
We haven't done the work of self-discovery and exploration. So why? 4 agreements, Don Miguel Ruiz. We take it personally. It has nothing to do with you. How about asking them what's going on? I've had so many people, Ray, who've been under care, and all of a sudden they stop care, and then they'll walk in 6 months, a year, 2 years later, and they'll book in, they'll walk up front, they'll talk to my CA, they'll be like, yeah, I want to go back on the annual plan. Life's been really stressful, lots to integrate. I'm ready to be all in. So like before they even come up and talk to me, they've already signed up for an annual care plan. How cool is that? Like, people are empowered to actually make their healthcare choices versus me putting them in a headlock, making them sign the dotted line.
Right. And that's when you said, too, where you ask questions. I think you gave an example of a child in your practice who didn't want to get care anymore, and then you asked the mom, like, well, why do you think that is? And, she comes back, well, he doesn't like being on the table. It was like something like that. And then you gave the idea of like the playroom that you had. And I thought that was a pretty powerful example, too.
I'll share that example again. So it was interesting because, she'd said, and we opened in dialogue where we were adjusting her and her family, and all of a sudden, little Billy, of course I'm changing names here, little Billy didn't want to get adjusted anymore. And so right away, I've worked with chiropractors, well, they don't like getting adjusted. And right away, it's all about the adjustment. And I'm like, well, is it? Can we ask some more questions? Understand? So, opening up the dialogue. So, what do you think it is? And she's like, I don't know. And then, so, as a result of opening up that dialogue, questions with mom, with him, he was just bored because people lay on my table for, up to 15 minutes because I'm a tonal practitioner. And so he didn't want to lay on the table. It had nothing to do with the actual like adjustment piece. It had to do with, it's freaking boring and I just want to play. And as a result of that, like, I got things to do here, and I want to play puzzles and color and this and that. So I totally revamped my family room there, totally set it up, put a whole bunch of toys in there, coloring this, that. And now, like, how cool is this? Like, what a gift little Billy was for me, because now I have families going there where I just 2, 3, 4 kids all at the same time who are running around the room playing. They don't have to lie down on the table, because all of a sudden when I said you don't have to lie down on the table anymore, you can sit up here and color. You can play with these toys. I'll bend down. I'll come to you and we'll adjust you, take some contacts, allow the system to process while I work through my open floor plan. So it's like, yeah, people on a table for about 15 minutes, but I typically adjust about 7, 8, 9 people every 15 minutes. So it's like I have this beautiful flow as I work through that, so I can still make a lot of impact and serve lots of people, and I don't have a bottleneck there. And it was all because of this kid said he didn't want to get adjusted. He created that model. So it's like any other industry, any other business, they look at their customers and they ask their customers for feedback. What are we doing wrong? How can we be better? Versus, I'm the doctor, I've got it figured out. Like, that's not being vitalistic. That's not being principled. That's being an egomaniac. That is the old school doctor-patient relationship. And that's what it is. I'm the doc, listen to me, you're being a bad patient right now. And, as you know, I don't even use that word because patient actually means, words are energy, right? I say, like, if I say to someone, hey, you're awesome versus, hey, you're an asshole, they're going to feel a little differently, right?
Yes.
So the word patient actually means to suffer. So I don't use that word. They're just people who come to my office. Nobody wants to be a patient. Nobody wants to be a sufferer, which patient means a sufferer for the rest of their life.
Exactly. That's actually stuck with me too from Mexico. I'm like, I have a response, like a nervous system response when I say, or I'm about to say it, I'm like, oh, and I reframe it with just my peeps or my people. Totally. So I'm excited to kind of really hone that in on practice, because I'm going to an office where they say patient, and they're so open to like new ideas. So I'm excited to see if I can bring that idea to them and see if that'll integrate into the practice.
Nice.
Sukhi, I want to wrap back around. There's a couple things that I kind of want to just play a little bit of devil's advocate on, just so we could have that conversation a little bit.
Cool.
So with subluxation, not saying it, taking someone from one box to another box, I definitely get that. And that's something I've been working with my docs who I'm going to be practicing with, is just like being congruent with the language. Like, part of the coaching is a little bit like there's using it as a condition, right? It's just like this it's a fear-based, goes back to that model, in which I really get that. But then there's some people who are going to be like, subluxation is what the profession, is founded on. Like, that was a big piece of of chiropractic, and you don't necessarily have to use it in a condition-based box. You could still talk about it being, it's what your body does. It adapts to these stressors and it creates this subluxation, but it's still not an ideal state to be in, right? A non-integrated pattern is not where you want to be. So can you still use the word in a different context that it still is empowering? Or would you say the idea of it less than light goes back to being impeccable with your wording? It's still some contradiction there.
So I really appreciate what you just said, and I actually agree with you. And I do believe in subluxations, and I am a principled chiropractor, and I am a subluxation-based chiropractor, even though I've never used the word. Right. So, the funny thing is, all I can share, Ray, is my truth. Yep. And who I am as a human being totally open and authentic. I don't have all the answers. I don't have it all figured out. And what I experience from that is that sometimes there's certain waters in life that are just muddy. And when we use certain terms and certain words, the first thing is there's another profession that has a different definition of that exact words. Medicine, right?
Right.
So first, we have to, make sure they don't think it's that. And then if they have seen another chiropractor, then I have to make sure that if they come from a place of, we have to rid the world of subluxations, and subluxations are these really bad, horrible things, versus a gift, an opportunity to increase your growth and evolution, then I have to reframe that. So for me, it just felt way more efficient to not even use the words and get right to the chase and just explain what it is.
I get that. And I think that's fair to say. And I think a lot of our listeners will be able to, you wrestle with that, no right or wrong answer, but it's like, that's a very good point.
And so to me, it was just an efficiency standpoint, because, for me, a big piece of what I do is really helping people when you're living a life a vitalistic life that's congruent with who you are from the inside out, you can feel people at a core level. You can feel people like at a soul level. The docs that I mentor, I'll get these intuitive hits and I'll text message. I'm like, hey man, what's going on? Something's up. I feel you. Your nervous system is just that in tune. And, we can talk about what that looks like and how I live my life today to allow myself to have the awareness and connection and consciousness to be able to do that. And so a lot of the ideas that I have developed and have worked towards and are continually up-leveling have come a lot from the data. They've come from the clients consciously and subconsciously, because I'll say things and I'll see how they respond, and then I'll test it with other people. I'm like, when I say X, I get Y response, but I really want Z response. So how do I change that? So, we talked about, before we started recording here, for like 14 years, I've done, as an ultramarathoner, 100-mile ultramarathons, 50-mile ultramarathons. I'm a 7-time Ironman finisher. I've got all this data. I was one of the first Ironman athletes to train and race in a ketogenic state several years ago. And this is a time where ketosis, nobody knew what it was. Today, there's exogenous ketones and all these different things. Back then, nobody knew what it was. Going on a high-fat, virtually no-carb diet, et cetera, et cetera. And I've got all this data. Like, I can literally look at a race. I can look at an Ironman race I did in 2010, and I could tell you, what my swim was, what my stroke rate was during the swim portion, which is 2.4 miles, what my cadence and power output and heart rate was on the bike for 112 miles. I can tell you the marathon. I could be like, this is where my paces were here. This is where my heart rate was, the terrain. I have journals on all my nutrition, my sleep, my energy levels. Like, I'm a data freak. Like, I'm a data freak. And how you do anything is how you do everything. Right. So everything and all these, and again, we're talking here, and it's kind of unique because you spent a week with me. So you kind of got more of the full picture. And in this podcast, we're getting a very fragmented version of that full picture. So a lot of these ideas and concepts, I would test them. And like I said, take to heart. I fell on my face a lot. I was like, oh my God, I can't believe I said that. Oh, that was ridiculous. I'm definitely not doing that again. And, continually formulated. And
was there a theme, Sukhi, when you failed on your face? Like, was there a theme of was it out of integrity with what you wanted to say, or was it just reps of conversation and a different way of communicating?
Yeah. So the biggest mistakes I made early, Ray, was that I was like, people were in the basement trying to figure out how to get light into their room. And I was in the penthouse, kicked back, saying, you gotta come check out the penthouse life. And they just couldn't comprehend that. They're just trying to move the curtain out of the way so they can let a little bit of light into their dungeon bedroom in the basement. Right. So for me, it was actually, if you take the hooks off these curtains, you can open up that whole window and you can get a few feet of light, and your dungeon is no longer going to feel like a dungeon. How cool is that? So, obviously I'm speaking metaphorically, but essentially I was speaking way too high level, way too human potential possibility so far that people couldn't connect to it. And as a result, because they couldn't connect to it, they couldn't see value. And because they couldn't see value, they didn't engage on the journey with me. Because this is what I say to everybody, okay? Time, money, especially money, time and money, those two things. Time and money becomes an issue for people in the absence of value. If you provide value, guess what, guys? People will fly to your town from another country, stay in a hotel for 3 months, pay for your care and services when you show value. So that's the other side of it, okay? Yeah, versus oh man, let's talk about, let's throw things, let's turn things 180 degrees a little more, 3 times a week. Well, I went down that rabbit hole. Guess how many RCTs there are that say that we as chiropractors should see people 3 times a week during our initial care phase?
None.
Beautiful. So why the F do we do it?
Yeah, it seems like it just gives some docs a starting point, right?
It becomes a starting point, right? Yeah. So I'll tell you, I do double and triple visits with people, really, really deep integrative processes. And, I start people anywhere from 3 to 9 visits a week. Whew. 9 visits. Oh yeah, you got to see me 9 times a week for the next 6 weeks. Okay, so then let's talk about who we are and who we're showing up as. When their uncertainty is greater than your certainty, they walk. When your certainty is greater than their uncertainty, they're all in. And you've connected to their values. So all of a sudden time and money is no longer an issue. It's like you value stack, and all this is based on possibilities. There's no element of fear here, A to Z. From the moment they walk in, I've dissected every single part of a chiropractic practice and how it should and shouldn't be done from a place of fear versus possibility, and clearing every touch point. And again, I've read E-Myth and Beyond the Myth, like plugging in the McDonald's model, life is so challenging, and it's a series of probabilities. So from the moment somebody walks in, from the moment they leave, whether it's the first visit, a regular adjustment, a reassessment, whatever, everything has a plan. If you go to McDonald's in your town, Ray, you go to McDonald's in my town, I haven't been to McDonald's in over 30 years, so I assume it's the same. But I'm pretty sure you're going to have a pretty similar experience. You're going to get a Big Mac, and they're going to ask if you want to supersize. It's sort of that type thing, right? But it's virtually going to be an identical experience, right? Yep. So we need to be able to create a model that's based on who you authentically are as a chiropractor. So we don't have any icky first date experiences, which contributes to our negative brand equity. And we're meeting people sharing exactly what we do. And, again, that's why talking points work and scripts don't. If we're in different places, I'll say different things. Right. If I'm going to play that piece, what do you do? Oh, hi, I'm Sukhi. I help people live a healthier, happier life. That's a very basic general thing. Well, how on earth and they're like, oh, that's great, Sukhi. Have a great day. I'm like, yeah, have a great day. Have a great life, because I'll probably never talk to you again, because they're not interested in learning more, right? Right.
Would you say that having scripts, if you have the scripts, but with the understanding that it's you have to come through authentically. So it's you can have the scripts for a baseline, but knowing that you have to get to a place of authenticity for it to happen.
Yeah.
Is that fair to say? Because I imagine another piece of our listeners, some of them are they might be really into scripts right now.
Yeah, really into scripts. So totally. Yeah, I mean, obviously, again, this is where humility comes in. I don't have all the answers. I'm just doing my best. I'm just trying to figure it all out. Absolutely. If you can use a script and find your own voice in it and move people forward and that needle forward with people. But here's the thing. This is what I'll challenge the people who do have scripts. Okay. Yeah. And I'll challenge you, because scripts might seem easier at first. But what I'm here to say is, when you're connected to yourself and create a life that allows you to be fully connected to who you are, and you sit down in front of somebody, you get these innate thought flashes that move through you, and you start to ask questions that transcend any script can give you, and you connect with people in such profound ways that literally brings people to tears.
Let's dive into that.
So my question is, why on earth would you want a superficial script when you can have that?
That's huge. That makes me think of that example that you gave with, and I don't know if you want to share it, but just a woman who came in and you were able to just go right there with her. And I don't know, she was a cheerleader, model, I think it was. And it's
okay.
There.
Yeah. So I'll quickly share a story.
Sukhi, how are you doing on time? I want to be respectful of your time, but there's so much training that I want to talk about.
Totally. long story short, she was a model, supermodel, drop dead gorgeous, and not in a relationship. And, very quickly it was crystal clear that in her lens of the world, all men are scum and unfaithful and cheat on their partners. So there's no point in even being in a relationship. And I'm just going to, roll up my sleeves and trudge through the world, using force, not coming from this place of authentic power. So like literally within the first minute, I just looked at her and I said, okay, let's just cut to the chase. I go, how old were you when you were in that relationship and your boyfriend partner cheated on you? And then she was like, excuse me? And literally this is a minute of knowing someone. And I said, I'm just going to dive right in here because this is it. This is what she was integrating. And this was the source of her physical symptoms, emotional pain, and ultimately what she wanted. She wanted to be loved. She wanted to be accepted. And if you saw this woman, she probably gets hit on every 30 seconds of the day. She's
right.
Like drop dead gorgeous. And so, literally she looked at me. First she got pissed off, and then she could just really see that I was holding this place of, trust, love, and compassion. And she just broke down in tears and dove in. And long story short, it happened when she was 18. Guy cheated on her, hasn't been in a relationship since. And, started working with her. A year later, she was in a relationship. 2 years later, she was married. 3 years later, she had a child. Do you think her chiropractic experience was a little bit different than if I focused on the headaches and back pain that brought her into my office?
And that's,
do you think I impacted her life in a profound, life-changing way? Do you think I connected her to maybe her soul's journey and purpose, who she no longer models, and she's a full-time mom and has a great life?
Yep. And now let's chat about the path. Because that's showing what's possible, right? But there is a journey to get there. The work that you've done to be able to stand in that conviction and that certainty and train that part of your being to be able to go there with someone, create that space. That is the work that needs to be done if we're going to be able to go places like that with people. So I think that's a pretty good segue into, we could dive into your morning routine. I think that was something that was really powerful to experience in Mexico. Was like every morning we went on a freaking 4-6 mile run, and that was like at 6 o'clock in the morning. And a lot of that's going to jive with a lot of our listeners, because Adjusting Ninjas, that's in the morning. We train at 6:05, and the Kairos
beautiful
training culture. It's just all about human performance for the chiropractor. So I think that was another. That was, my heart resonated so much when you were talking. I was just like, oh, I hope our paths continue to cross, and your path with Kairos continues to cross. But let's dive into.
And you told me about Kairos before a few weeks ago. I didn't even know what Kairos was. So thank you for that. And I think that's so beautiful and amazing that culture is being created. Whoever created it, awesome, high fives, and that, there's people engaging in it. So, taking a step back, we are the conscious creators of our reality. We see life through our own perceptual lenses. That's a fact. You don't have to believe it, but it is scientific fact. Right or wrong, scientific fact. We are the conscious creators of our reality. I learned this at a young age. So I made the decision, at a certain time, especially when I delved into practice. And this is what I say to people. If people want to be mentored by me, I'll say, because this is how I live my life. Are you willing to live your life as if you're in a world-class training camp? Are you willing to live your life from the moment you get up to the moment you go to bed, from moment to moment to moment, like you're in a world-class training camp? One of my business partners, who I was with him in Europe. I just came back a few days ago. Apollo Ono. He's the most decorated Winter Olympian in the States. He's got 8 Olympic medals. Like Apollo, I know how Apollo lives his life and how he lived his life. And you want to talk about dedication. There's no accidents. He won 8 Olympic medals, multiple world championships, the most decorated Winter Olympian, one of the most decorated Winter Olympians on the planet. There's no accident. There's cause and there's effect. People look at those medals and think, oh, wow, good for you. Lucky for you. You did all these great things. endorsements, sponsors, but no, nobody knows the depth of the work that this gentleman did. I live my life like that. And when I say this model is recreatable, you have to live your life like that. And when you live your life like that, because we are the conscious creators of our reality, and life is just a mirror of where you're resonating in the frequency you are within yourself. When you start to live with that, you start to raise your consciousness, raise your frequency. And all of a sudden, what you once thought was impossible becomes possible. So that's how I live my life. And again, routines. Something I share is like, I get my dogs to start creating masterpiece day. Well, how do you create a masterpiece day? It doesn't start that day. It actually starts the night before. So natural biorhythms. I go to bed and I wake up with the setting and rising of the sun. I'll typically go to bed when I put, I'm big into attachment parenting. My 5-2-year-old daughters, we have a family bed. All 4 of us, my wife, we all sleep in the same bed. I'll put my daughters to bed around 7:30 every single night. I usually go to bed with them, 7:30. 8:30 p.m. for me is staying up late. I'm typically up around 4-ish a.m., sometimes 3:30, sometimes 4:30. I have not set an alarm in over a decade. Haven't set an alarm. I just let my body naturally get up. When I naturally get up, another principle, what is your power habit? What is the one thing that makes you feel so connected, so potent, so powerful, so pure? What is that thing for you? For me, I used to think it was exercise, but that wasn't specific enough. As I mentioned, I was an ultra endurance athlete right up until Indira, my 5-year-old, was 2. And I took a step back. I took a few years off. And actually this year I'm going back to racing, but I'm doing short course racing because I don't want to invest the time that it required to be a long distance athlete, where those times, my busiest weeks, my longest weeks, we were over 30 hours of training, and I competed at a really high level. I was always chasing the podium as an age grouper, top 1% in the world, 9.5 hours in Ironman. And again, those are the effects. People see those shiny trinkets, but they don't realize the work of going into that day in, mind, body, spirit, what I'm thinking about moment to moment. But to create a masterpiece day starts the night before with a good night's sleep. I've coached multiple high-level athletes, world-class athletes, Olympic athletes, and it starts the night before. They're asking me about nutrition and supplements. I'm like, whoa, let's back up. Let's talk about sleep, the number one thing. Why sleep's so important? It's part of chiropractic. Sleep is where we integrate. It's where our nervous system goes through somatic waves to help integrate the forces that are put in through us throughout the day, facilitating the evolutionary process. It doesn't happen when people are on the table adjusting. It happens at night, and every athlete knows that.
And it's crazy how that is the one thing that people will give up too. It's like I was reading,
people give up. Yeah, totally.
Reading Why We Sleep by Matthew Walker, I think. He's like a neuroscientist talking about sleep, and he's like, it's the number one thing.
The number one thing. Sleep is the number one thing. So for me, I sleep and I let my body sleep. And I went through phases. Sometimes I sleep 4 hours a night. Sometimes I slept 12 hours a night. And I nap virtually every single day. Every single day. Midday, I find somewhere to nap. Usually starts with a meditation, visualization, but I nap. So my power habit is not exercise. My power habit is burying myself with intense workouts. Workouts that are not for the faint of heart. And they're either runs or they're on my bike, or their swim intervals, or their WODs. I just bury myself right to the point where people will be like, dude, how do you do that by yourself on your trainer, on your bike? Like, people have to go to fitness studios and need a trainer. Are you screaming at them top of their lungs to pull out intervals like this? For me, they're my power habit, because that challenges me and pushes me and gets me so far out of my comfort zone first thing in the morning. Everything else throughout the day is just that much more easier. And it's like I have to remind myself every 24 hours of that. So for me, my mornings start with intense workout sessions, different disciplines, so I stay in balance with not overtraining. I then move into meditation. I then move into visualization, what I call priming the pump for my North Star. What is my big, audacious goal? What's my reason for being? Why am I here? I think about that. I take it from thoughts. I drop it down into feelings. And then when I'm done with that visualization and feeling that, and it's all about service, it's all about how I'm going to make an impact to all those people around me. It's not about me, okay? It's not about the freaking vision board with the 6-pack abs and the Lamborghini. Because, I've done okay in life. Sure, we all love nice things. I love nice things. But here's the difference, right? Take those nice things and take those material things away from me. It does not affect the volume of my fulfillment, my happiness, and who I show up as in the world. Those are just things. There was a time in my life where I was sleeping on park benches, homeless. So we don't need much to survive. And those things make our life comfortable. But the second those things define us, we've lost sight. We've stepped out of bounds. And going through a meditation, a visualization, and then journaling. Very deep really journaling quick, Sukhi, process.
On the visualization process, you talked about your North Star goal. I want to give just a quick recap a little bit of what my takeaway from when you were teaching this. It's like having these goals. It's really not about necessarily reaching those goals, but it's like the person you become who is become worthy of those goals, and really how you're going to course correct. Like I can set a goal right now for the next 10 years based off what I think it is, what I want in 10 years. And that could change, but it's just like setting that goal, then breaking it down into, actions and processes and kind of working backwards from that point is really huge. But when you're visualizing, because I know you have your 3 main components of your life, like your, vitalism, then your family and relationships, and then your service. Do you have a North Star goal within each of those, or do you have one mostly around service? And break me down what that visualization process looks like.
Yeah, it's actually all 3. So, like for me personally, it's when you lose your health, which I did at one point in my life, you realize that your health is the most important thing. And so like, if I lose my health, the people that depend on me, I now become dependent upon. So for me, I need my health and vitality. It has to be our number one. It has to be before family. It has to be before service, because you are your biggest asset. I'm a huge, huge believer that we as chiropractors, our individual entity and who we are is our brand. We build personality-based practices. Get over it. We don't have exit strategies from the practice of chiropractic. We're not going to make millions of dollars of selling our office. You might make something, but it's not going to set you up for the rest of your life. And the second you step out of practice, you will not reap the rewards that practice gave you. And one of them is monetary. You'll make more money getting your hands on people than you will anything else, no matter how many docs and anything else you have in there. So for me, my North Star goals for me, and I have 3 areas. I have vitality. Number 2 is family. Number 3 is service. And my vitality is to be a world-class athlete with extraordinary power, speed, endurance, a deep sense of connection to myself and my soul's purpose. So that's my North Star vision for my vitality.
So what does that look like when you're visualizing that?
It's how I feel. So that's why the 6-pack, on my vision board doesn't work for me, because that's outside of me. What does it feel like to live with that? So again, being an ultra endurance athlete, I can't tell you what it feels like, 2 days before a 100-mile ultra marathon that, I've ran 72 marathons in training to get to that level of fitness, or an Ironman where I'm 2 days before and you literally feel superhuman. Like I feel superhuman. Like I literally feel like I could be like, I could bound buildings like Spider-Man, and like that's how you feel. So I've experienced that feeling because of the, athletic recreational endeavors I've been a part of, multi-day stage races. So I bring my feeling to that. And then that deep sense of connection where, that human potential within us, the human nervous system that, coordinates every cell, tissue, organ that's responsible for 100,000 chemical reactions every second for every single cell. I connect. That's my soul. That's my spirit. And I really connect with that right to the point where when I feel this, I literally get tears in my eyes. Like literally tears come out of my eyes. Like it just, this deep, profound sense of connection to myself, to the universe, and the people in my universe. So it's all about the feeling. Because feeling is vibration, and vibration is energy, and energy is consciousness.
I love that. And I think that's like, the piece I was looking for, because it's like, I'm still trying to cultivate this practice of visualization. And I think that is maybe the missing piece, is just like being able to train yourself to feel those emotions, you know, with that visualization in your mind.
Yeah, no, it is. So like seeing it, writing it, that's grade one. That's why like some people say, yeah, law of attraction, it's awesome. And others, yeah, law of attraction, it sucks. It didn't work for me. Because most people don't get beyond thoughts and seeing. You literally have to feel it to the core of your being.
Right.
And that's when, you know, my wife says, out of all the things I've accomplished in my life, she says, you are the greatest manifester on the planet. And, you know, I'll give you a chiropractic example for that. If I look, oh, there's no new people next week, I would go in my office and I would meditate and visualize the feeling, go through a visualization process of an exact person coming in, and I would do that 15 minutes, because there was a time my wife left her job and she worked in my office for a couple of years with me, and she would see this, and literally within the next 8 hours, those 3 people would call in for next week.
That's powerful, man.
That's powerful, dude. Yeah. Like literally, like you could literally meditation, and people laugh at this, meditation could become your form of marketing when you become that potent and that powerful. Or like you vibrationally turn into the field, and all of a sudden these waves get collapsed into particles. They get the message, they pick up the phone, they call in. Like the impact of this, and these are the things that, you know, I teach my docs about. Like this is the real stuff, you know. Yeah, sure, you can set up the Facebook page and all that, but like don't get lost in it, because that's not where the goods are going to come from.
And how about the journaling process, Sukhi?
So then, you know, from there, it's continually refining and seeing what it is. So like, you know, if we talk about let's talk about family. Okay. So, you know, my first one for family is with my wife, to be an extraordinary husband, married into centurionhood, where I have a deep, intimate connection to Kate, where I may love, support, and help Kate actualize her full potential to shine brightly. So I feel that. And all of a sudden I take my journal, and let's say it's Saturday and it's a family day. So I'm now going to write down, I'm going to essentially close the integrity gap. The integrity gap is me being the best version of what I just shared and where I am right now, and the things I'm going to do today to help Kate actualize her potential and be the most authentic, loving, vulnerable husband that she can experience today. And I'll write down those things based on what's going on that day. And those will be my action steps for the day.
Gotcha. I love it. So you got your starting the night, you know, getting to bed early, spending time connecting with your family, waking up, moving, not lightly, getting after it.
Not lightly. I go after it. Oh yeah, I go after it.
Going after it.
Yeah.
Visualization or meditation, visualization, and then journaling. And, you know, that gets done every single day, no matter what, even if you have to shorten it.
Even if I have to shorten it. And you experienced in Mexico, I gave you guys an example, because then after we went for a run, which I made optional, and you saw how many people showed up. There was over about 50 people there, and we would maybe have a dozen, sometimes even less people show up for running. So even an event like that, you can see how some people, they're just not ready to do the work. And that's okay if you're not ready to do the work. But just know there's consequences of not doing the work. You know, it's cause and effect, right? And actually, sorry, let me reframe that. It's not cause and effect. It's causing an effect. We are, every moment of every day, we are causing an effect for reality to shape itself in our external world based on what we're doing in our internal world. So we're constantly causing effects. And we can go down another rabbit hole when it comes to the healing process, and someone walks in with a terminal illness, cancer, autoimmune disease, and how we can literally collapse and integrate those patterns into new potentials of reality.
Yeah, and just a quick loop. I don't even think I finished when I was talking about our morning routine in Mexico, it's like, you're right. We went on our run, and we got back, and we did an intense, like 30, 45-minute movement session. Then we did the visualization, and then, you know, an intention for our day and gratitude. And you always were like, how could you not want to start your day like this at the end of it?
Exactly.
Everyone's just like, hell yeah.
Yeah. So like for me, I go through my morning routine, Ray, and then I go back upstairs and then I'm with my family, and by then it's, you know, it's only 5:45, you know, and I've just went through that for 2.5 hours.
Yep.
You know, it's like, so what did I say earlier? It's like impossible to not have a masterpiece day when you start your day like that. And this is the other thing I want to say. The worse you feel, the more you must stick to your ABCs, because it's easy when you feel good. When you feel great, it's easy to go exercise, meditate, visualize. But when you feel like shit, that's when you need it most. So that's one of my switches, because here's the reality. You know, I may be painting a picture that, you know, I'm on this on purpose, on fire, and I feel great every day. And that is so far from the truth, because I have shit. I got my own baggage. I have my own wounds, but I'm just doing my best. But the shittier I feel, the more on point I am to do the work, because that's the thing that's going to get me out. I'll tell you what it's not. It's not a glass of wine. And, you know, like I said, you know, I talk about this, like, imagine I have a 6-pack, hammer some lines, because, you know, we talked about, you know, there was a time in my life I did cocaine. So, you know, in my first 18 years, so like if I had a 6-pack, hammered some lines, watched porn, and then go to bed, how great is my AM going to be? Yeah.
Not at all. Non-existent.
Non-existent, right? Like low vibration. But when you feel like crap, you kind of want to do the low vibration stuff.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's huge. And I've been thinking about that, just trying to be more and more on point with my morning. And it's just like, it does. You start to get this trigger in the evening. It's just like, okay, my actions are now influencing my morning tomorrow. So it's just like, it's a good place to be in, to really be conscious of what those actions look like. When are you getting to bed? How late are you eating? Are you going to have that glass of wine or that drink? You know, it's like, you really start to dive deep into that, knowing how crucial that morning is. So I really like that. Sukhi, I want to transition a little bit. We could talk for another few hours, but I know you've got things to do and places to be, people to see.
I got a few minutes, so let's start to wrap up here.
Let's do it. Usually go into the quick fire round at this point, but I mean, you've covered so many of them. I would just ask, what is the maybe 1 to 2 or 3 books other than your own that, I mean, all of our listeners need to check out? Because I'm still diving in. I've gone through it, and now I have to go back through it because it's so dense. But what about some other books that you enjoy gifting people or have influenced you?
You know, 2 books really jump out. One is a profound book that just hit me on such a core level. Is Viktor Frankl, Man's Search for Meaning. Huge. I mean, the guy in concentration camp and actually finds meaning and purpose through that, and what this ultimate thing called life is and why we're here. So Viktor Frankl, Man's Search for Meaning, completely opened up my service hand and heart in a way that I can't even explain, that literally transcends everything. I believe it should be part of the core curriculum for every chiropractor should read that book. I said I delved deep into quantum physics. There's a book written in 1978 by Gary Zukav called Dancing Wu-Li Masters. Wu-Li means energy. Gary Zukav, at the time, he hung out with quantum physicists for 10 years. He documented it. The book starts out with quantum physics equations, and then he gets into Buddhist philosophy and Taoism and spirituality towards the end. That book set me on a new collision course. It totally changed my worldview of what I believe the matrix of this universe is made of. So highly encourage that for those people that want to do a deep dive down the rabbit hole of physics and quantum physics. It's a great place to start.
Okay.
And then a really simple book, The 4 Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz. It's a great book to really start with self-discovery and exploration, and how we take things personally or make assumptions or don't do our best and are not impeccable with our words. That's the 4 elements of that book. But those
Perfect.
3 books kind of cover, you know, why we're here, the fragment of this universe, and then some things that we can work on in this moment. So those are my 3 I would give you.
Perfect. And something I wanted to share with our listeners as we're wrapping up, and we didn't get to dive into, but Sukhi, you told us in Mexico, just building your practice, and you gave so many speeches, and you're able to fill rooms now of, hundreds of thousands of people coming in to watch you speak. But it all started, really, really small. You might have one person show up, or they would cancel, and then you'd have, 3 teddy bears from your child room and basically give them a different, that's a 16-year-old soccer player. Here's a CEO. And you would still give your speech. And you said something that really stuck with me. And I was like, the universe is always watching. So you continue to refine your talk, and you just did it over and over again. And that's something that really resonates with me on how I want to build my practice, because it's like I can give a message on that platform versus people coming in where it's, just about pain and going that route, that's going to happen too. But getting in front of people is huge.
Yeah, getting in front of people is huge. And I think that's a big piece. Like, early on, it's going to be difficult to get people to come. They're too busy. Why? Because they don't see value. Remember, time, resources becomes an issue in the absence of value. So you have to show more value to get people there.
Yeah.
Man, exactly. I couldn't pay people to get me to come in to their offices and businesses to, speak and talk. And here's the irony. Now people ask me to speak, they pay me thousands of dollars, and then the people still want to see me in my practice as a result. Like, that's been full circle over 16 years.
So that's great for our listeners.
Yeah. You know what I mean? So it's like, that's my life come full circle.
Perfect.
First, if you want to be good at anything, practice, practice, practice. I'm a half decent speaker, and it's because I've spoken well over 1,000 times to audiences, thousands, over 10,000 people is my biggest audience I've ever spoken to. But here's where it started, man. Yep. In my practice, in the early years, to 0 to 3 people. 0 to 3 people. Because you know what? If no one showed up and I grabbed my snowboard and hid in the mountain that was 20 minutes away, I'm showing the universe I didn't want to give that talk. And the universe is always watching. And Paul has a saying, champions are created when no one else is watching. And I have that saying. Champions are created when nobody else is watching. Who are you being moment to moment to moment? You can't be an asshole in your life and show up in your office and be a nice guy. So you want to be a nice, loving, kind, serving chiropractor, you have to be a nice, kind, loving, serving human being.
I love that.
In every aspect of your life.
All right, Sukhi. Where can our listeners find out more about you? Where can they check you out online, get your book? And you have a whole other side business. You're an entrepreneur, man. We didn't go into any of that, but it's just like, where can our peeps check you out, man?
Peeps can check me out. One place you can go to if, again, like we call them mission trips, but they're personal development programs packaged into a mission trip. You now know that being on the other side. And the intention is to plant seeds of what's possible for our profession. You happen to spend a few hours every day adjusting, but it's not the goal and intent of the program. The goal and intent is to open up your minds to a new possibility so you guys can be badass chiropractors. And I love the students that come out and young docs. So that's at vitalisticmasters.com. If I don't even know if my book can be available there, you can go to drsukhi.com. That's kind of like my blog page, kind of all things Dr. Sukhi there. My book's available on Amazon, Beyond Body, Beyond Mind. If what resonated with you, if what I shared today resonated with you and you'd like to get on the path, it's a great book. I share my story, and there's a lot of personal development content. In the end, I'm a personal development junkie. I've read and referenced thousands of books and research articles, and that's really what my book is a how-to and really creating a badass life and how to trudge forward with that. Those are probably the 2 best places to check me out from a chiropractic standpoint. And reach out, fire me an email if something I shared with you, resonated. I'd love to hear from you. It's what gets me up in the morning. In a world of technology, I was sharing with Ray, I try to be as low tech as humanly possible, even though I'm a very high tech guy, and nothing replaces, an authentic, heartfelt message from somebody who I've been able to touch or impact or open up someone's mind. So please reach out. I'd love to hear from you. And, I hope there was some value in what we shared here today.
There's a ton, brother. Thank you so much for giving your time. It's been so much fun, bro.
Awesome, Ray. Thank you, man. Thanks for having me. Really honored.
Go on. Well, let's try to make this like a yearly thing. I think that'd be fun.
That's right. We talked about that. Yeah, I'd be more than happy to do that. We do another check-in in another, 6 months, year's time, and do another deep dive on some cool stuff.
Awesome. All right,
Cool.
Dr. Sukhi, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, TAC listeners, if you enjoy this one, head over to iTunes or Stitcher so you can subscribe to the podcast and get an automatic download of our newest episode each and every week. While you're at it, we love a review, a comment, a rating, anything that will allow us to reach more docs and more students and continue to raise the bar in chiropractic performance training. If you haven't yet checked out theartfulchiropractor.com, you can do that for show notes for this episode and previous ones, along with any of the resources that our docs are dropping. And if you haven't yet checked out the Kairos Training Culture Community Facebook page, you have to get there, send a request with a message of who you are and why you want to be a part of the group, because there are so many amazing golden nuggets that are being dropped every single day that are elevating the chiropractic performance game. So with that, I hope you all have an amazing rest of your week as always, and until next time, peace.